When I asked why my name wasn't on the invite, my daughter said, "We wanted it simple, just his family listed." A day to the wedding, she screamed, "Mom, the baker won't release the cake you paid for." I calmly responded, "Keep it simple, then." Welcome, friends, to the story of how a 5-tier architectural marvel of sugar and buttercream became a weapon of karmic justice. This is about more than just a wedding cake. It's about the slow, painful realization that the daughter you raised has been replaced by a stranger who sees you as a liability. It's about a meticulously crafted plan for a social ascension that forgot one tiny detail. You don't get to erase the person who is funding your ascent. The fireworks didn't happen with a bang, but with the quiet, chilling click of a baker's walk-in cooler door shutting for the final time. My name is Grace, and for 27 years, my daughter was my entire world. After my husband, Robert, passed away from a heart attack when Jessica was just 12, it was just the two of us against everything. I poured my life into her. I'm an architect, and I worked myself to the bone, not just to pay the bills, but to build a world for her where she would feel safe and wanted. I designed the house we lived in, a beautiful, light-filled space that was our sanctuary. Every success in my career was measured by what it could provide for her. The best schools, the trips abroad, the freedom to pursue her passions. I didn't just raise a daughter, I designed a life for her. And she was wonderful, smart, funny, and full of life. Then she went to university and met Gregory Barrington. The Barringtons are not just wealthy, they are a dynasty. They come from the kind of old, quiet money that considers anyone who has to actively work for a living to be slightly tragic. Their family tree is less of a tree and more of a meticulously pruned, topiary hedge. They don't have jobs. They manage family assets. They don't have houses. They have estates. And they have a set of unwritten rules and expectations as rigid as their posture. My brilliant, independent daughter fell head over heels, not just for Gregory, but for the entire Barrington package. She began to change in subtle ways at first. Her vocabulary shifted. She started talking about summering in certain places and developed a sudden, passionate interest in yachting. Then the changes became more pronounced. She started to critique my home, the one I had designed for us. "It's a bit too modern, Mom," she'd say. "The Barringtons prefer a more classic aesthetic." She started to gently edit my history. My self-made career as a successful architect became, "My mother dabbles in design." My late husband, a brilliant and kind high school history teacher, became, "My father was in education." She was sanding down the edges of our reality to make it fit into their perfectly smooth, pre-packaged world. I told myself it was just a phase, that she was just trying to fit in. I loved her, so I let it slide. When Gregory proposed, I was thrilled for her. And when the wedding planning began, I did what I had always done. I opened my checkbook and offered my unconditional support. The Barringtons, in their infinite generosity, had agreed to host the wedding at their country estate. My role, as dictated by Jessica, was to be the silent financial partner. I was to pay for the dress, the flowers, and most importantly, the cake. This was to be not just any cake. Jessica and the formidable Mrs. Barrington had decided that only a cake from Helena Croft would suffice. Helena Croft is less of a baker and more of a dessert deity. Her waiting list is 3 years long. Her cakes are edible sculptures, and securing one is a mark of supreme social standing. It was the centerpiece of their plan to stage the social event of the season. Getting Helena was a nightmare. I had to call in every favor I had. I finally managed to get a spot through a client who was a collector of Helena's work. I met with Helena personally. We clicked. She too was a self-made woman who respected hard work. I signed the contract, a document as complex as a building permit, and paid the staggering 50% deposit. The contract was exclusively between Grace Miller Designs and Helena Croft Confections. Jessica's name was nowhere on it. Gregory's name was nowhere on it. The Barringtons' name was nowhere on it. It was a detail that seemed insignificant at the time. A month before the wedding, the invitations arrived. It was a masterpiece of engraving and calligraphy, thick as a credit card and twice as pretentious. It announced the union of Jessica Hayes and Gregory Barrington. And at the bottom, in elegant script, it read, "Hosted by Mr. and Mrs. William Barrington." That was it. My name was absent. My late husband's name was absent. It was as if my daughter had been immaculately conceived into the Barrington dynasty. I called her, trying to keep my voice light, assuming it was some bizarre mistake. "Jess, honey, I got the invitation. It's beautiful, but I think there's a typo. They seem to have left me off." There was a pause, a small, guilty silence. "Oh, Mom, about that." And then she delivered the reason, the perfectly plausible, sensible, and utterly soul-crushing explanation. "We had a long talk with a wedding etiquette consultant, and because you kept your maiden name for your business, and my last name is Hayes from Dad, and of course the Barringtons are the Barringtons, it just looked so messy on the paper. 3 different family names for the bride's side. The consultant and Mrs. Barrington felt that for the sake of simplicity and elegance, it was cleaner to just list the groom's family. We wanted it simple, just his family listed. It's not personal, Mom. It's about presentation." It wasn't personal. She had erased me, my entire history, for the sake of presentation. I was messy. My professional identity, the one I had built from nothing, was an inconvenience. My husband's legacy was a branding problem. She wasn't just my daughter anymore. She was a brand manager, and her own mother had been deemed off-brand. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. Something inside me went very, very still. It was the quiet, cold click of a deadbolt sliding into place. "I see," I said, my voice perfectly even. "Well, if simplicity is the goal, then we must respect that. Thank you for clarifying." I ended the call. For the next month, I was the model of compliance.
Jessica saw my cooperation as acceptance. She thought I had understood. She thought I had meekly accepted my role as the invisible, silent backer of her new, simplified life. She had no idea that I was simply agreeing to the new terms she had set. She had officially defined the family, and I was not in it. The day before the wedding was a blur of frantic, last-minute preparations for the wedding party. For me, it was a day of quiet, methodical work at my studio. I didn't feel angry. I felt a strange sense of peace, the kind that comes from making a difficult but necessary decision. I had spent the previous weeks playing the part of the dutiful, check-writing mother, and now the final act was about to begin. My only move was a single, brief phone call to Helena Croft's office to confirm the pickup logistics. I spoke to Helena herself. I didn't need to explain the situation. She already knew. She'd seen the invitation. A work of art should not be displayed in a place where the artist is not welcome, she had told me. My contract is with you, Grace, and my loyalty is with you too. The call came at 4 p.m., exactly as I knew it would. I was reviewing a blueprint when my phone buzzed with Jessica's name. I let it ring 3 times before answering. I didn't say anything. I just waited. "Mom!" Her voice was a shrill, panicked shriek, a sound I hadn't heard since she was a teenager who had missed her curfew. "Where are you? The coordinator just went to pick up the cake and Helena Croft won't release it. She says the final payment hasn't been made and only the client can authorize the pickup. She says the client is you." The practiced, elegant Barrington accent she had adopted was gone, replaced by the raw panic of a spoiled child whose favorite toy had just been taken away. I leaned back in my chair, looking at the large window of my office, at the city skyline I had helped to build. "Well, that sounds like a problem," I said, my voice a study in calm. "What do you mean, a problem?" she screeched. "It's a catastrophe. The wedding is tomorrow. Mrs. Barrington is on her way to the bakery right now. You have to call them. You have to release it. You paid the deposit." I swiveled my chair to face the window completely. "Ah, but Jessica, that's where the terms get a little complicated," I said. "You see, the cake was my gift to my daughter, from her family. But according to the wedding invitation, you don't have any family on your side. It's just the Barringtons. You wanted it simple, remember? Just his family listed. So it would be incredibly messy and complicated for a gift from a non-existent family to suddenly appear at your simple, elegant wedding. It would ruin the presentation." There was a long, sputtering silence on the other end of the line. I could almost hear the frantic whirring of her mind as she tried to process the cold, inescapable logic of my words. She was trapped in the very box she had built for me. "What are you talking about?" She finally stammered. "That was just for the invitation. It's not real. You're my mother. You can't do this to me." "But it is real, Jessica," I responded, still calm. "You made it real. You made a public declaration of who you consider family. I am simply respecting your wishes. The cake is from the Miller-Hayes family, and since that family is not listed as being part of this union, its gift will respectfully abstain from attending. I can't have my cake causing an awkward branding issue for you on your big day. We have to keep it simple then." I could hear a new voice in the background, a sharp, imperious tone. It was Mrs. Barrington, having arrived on the scene. "What is the meaning of this? Get your mother on the phone right now." Jessica's voice dropped to a desperate whisper. "Mom, please. Mrs. Barrington is here. She's furious. You're humiliating me." "No, sweetheart," I said, and a note of steel entered my voice. "You humiliated me. You humiliated your father's memory. You erased us because you were ashamed of us. This isn't a punishment. This is a natural consequence. You wanted a wedding that was just about the Barringtons, and now you have one." I hung up the phone. I learned later, through a cousin who was a bridesmaid, that the aftermath was a spectacular display of Barrington fury. Mrs. Barrington tried to throw her money and her name around, but Helena Croft was immovable. She was an artist, not a vendor, and she would not be bullied. They tried to find a replacement, but on the day before a major society wedding, the best they could manage was a bland, generic sheet cake from a supermarket. The empty, ornate cake stand sat in the middle of the grand ballroom, a glaring 5-foot-tall monument to their failure. It was the only thing anyone talked about. Jessica's grand entrance into society, her perfectly curated event, was permanently marred by a ghost of a cake that was more famous for its absence than its presence. She got her simple wedding. So simple, in fact, that it lacked the one thing she had sacrificed her own mother for, the flawless, undeniable stamp of elite approval. She wanted to show the world that she was a Barrington. Instead, all she did was show them, and me, exactly who she was, a girl who had sold her own story for a seat at a table, only to find herself eating crumbs.